Well, it was a huge day yesterday in a lot of different ways, including this. Hours after the Big Ten Conference made its decision to return to play college football this fall, all eyes turned to the Pac-12, whose commissioner Larry Scott was a guest with Neil Everett on SportsCenter last night.
Well, getting the local county approvals as soon as possible would allow our student athletes and our coaches to start what we think of as normal practice. And then, the best case scenario is 6 weeks of practice training camp and, starting end of October, early November, but that's still subject to, county approvals, which we don't have yet. So that's the best case. And we're going to do everything possible to play this fall, if we can, play a Pac-12 championship game and have teams compete for a college football playoff if it's possible.
If it's possible is obviously the most important part of that. Paul Finebaum and Heather Dinich are with me early this morning. Heather, we just heard Larry Scott. What can you tell us about their timetable? Because the Big Ten, as we discussed yesterday, is squeezing its entire season in just with enough time to be ready for the college football playoff. Can the Pac-12 do that?
Possibly, as he said, the timetable is out of their hands until they get that local approval from public health officials, where those 4 California schools are and 2 Oregon schools. How quickly that happens will determine their return. Now, the Pac-12 presidents and chancellors are meeting on Friday, where I'm sure all of this will be discussed. But then beyond that, their timetable also includes the testing that they got. The new daily testing will be on each campus by the end of this month. Following that, there's a short time period they need to train everyone how to use those tests and know the testing protocol. And then they determine, you heard Larry say, they want ideally 6 weeks to train to properly play a football game. The Big Ten has condensed that, as you know. Their doctors and physicians yesterday said, we're okay with that. We'll see if the Pac-12 might change its mind. And as Larry Scott said yesterday, push the envelope to get back faster.
Yeah, because, excuse me, the clock is ticking in every conceivable way. Paul, what would the significance in your mind be of the Pac-12's return?
It would be great to have them competing, but Greeny, I don't think it's going to be a big factor. If you look at the Pac-12 objectively, there's really only one school, Oregon, that may play big into the playoffs. And I'm not going to sit here and talk about the Pac-12's ineffectiveness in the playoff over the years. Oregon played for the championship. They've had other schools in, but they have not been a serious contender. The big story was the Big Ten. I mean, they do matter in the playoff, but everyone would love to see the Pac-12. I don't think they're going to make it in time for the playoff, but that's their own fault. They've been sitting around moving forward toward a spring ball while the Big Ten realized their mistake and got right to it.
Well, so again, I want to go back to the playoff, because to me that feels like, from everyone's standpoint, the most important part. Dabo Swinney, coach at Clemson, was asked yesterday about having the Big Ten join the playoff. Here's what he said.
I have no problem with that at all. You've got some of the best teams in the country in that league, and it's not those players' fault. It's not those coaches' fault. I'm just glad that they're getting an opportunity to get back to playing. I think whoever wins this has got a chance to be maybe the greatest champion ever, regardless of how many conferences, with all that's been in play and all that everyone has had to deal with, especially these young men.
So there's a lot to unpack in that comment. So, Heather, let's start with this. I asked you yesterday on the radio, and you said it wasn't a certainty yet. What are you hearing from the college football playoff about including the Big Ten and potentially the Pac-12 in their ultimate Final Four teams?
Well, Greeny, I talked to CFP Executive Director Bill Hancock yesterday and asked him if there's a minimum number of games that teams have to play to qualify for a semifinal. And he told me that hasn't been determined yet, because it doesn't have to be determined yet. The people in charge of the college football playoff rules, remember, are the 10 FBS commissioners, including Larry Scott and Kevin Warren in the Big Ten, and they determine those types of things. And they obviously want to see how this season plays out. What if Clemson only plays 6 games? Then there's a conversation about, well, maybe you only need 6 games to be in a semifinal, right? So he said that they're going to be patient, watch those scenarios unfold as it gets closer to selection committee meeting time. But he did tell me that the protocols have not changed for determining the top 4 teams in the country, and it's the selection committee's job to choose them based on the schedules the conferences determine.
Yes, I will just say this. When it comes to that, if you are a fan of chaos in college football, this might very well be the season for you. And I know that my friend Mr. Finebaum is definitely that. So, Paul, let's let you be the first one on this show on the record. As we stand right now, give me your 4 teams. Who will be in the Paul crystal ball? Who are the 4 teams who are going to wind up playing for the championship?
Yeah, Greeny, I start with Clemson. They are there every single year, and they will be there again this year. Alabama is next. Nothing changed yesterday that affects Alabama's attempt to regain the crown. And here comes the new entrant. It is Ohio State. I have no doubt whatsoever they are one of the 3 best teams in the country. They may be even better. They ended the season last year in the semifinals, blowing a big lead to Clemson. The 4th one is very difficult, but I'm going with Oklahoma because I think that league is diminished, and if they get through the league undefeated, which I think they have a good chance of doing, that they'll sneak in. But the big losers yesterday really were the ACC and the SEC. Georgia, possible loser in the SEC game, or even Notre Dame may have gotten edged out by Ohio State's entry into the playoff.
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.